Okay, good morning everybody, and welcome to this event today and tomorrow, our blockchain and the built environment event. We're a few people that are delayed by transport links who've been texting and WhatsApping and so on to say they're on the way, but we thought we'd kick off as much on time as we could do, but people will sort of come in during this time. So this is a sort of collaborative event, blockchain and the built environment, between Arup, Hyperledger, Oracle and UCL, so this is very much a partnership event today, and thanks for that partnership of getting together to put this event on. My name's Will Cavendish, and I'm the digital services leader in Arup, which is a global role in Arup, and I also run our advanced digital engineering group here in London, which is a 300 strong group of engineers, scientists, data scientists, technologists, digital experts at trying to use digital technology to transform the built environment. I'm going to say a few words of introduction and a sort of short presentation, and then we'll hear from others as well. So this is the structure of our agenda. Today, you've had the registration and coffee. I hope that was acceptable. Arup coffee isn't quite, barista level, but I hope it wasn't too bad. Presentation from me. Then we have Vikram presenting from Oracle, Adam from Autodesk, and Marta, who is one of the people texting to say she's on a transport delay, but will definitely be here, from Hyperledger. Bit of more Arup coffee. And then some further presentations in the afternoon. In the morning, networking, lunch, and then the hackathon will start, which will be, fantastic. Where are we, Arup, in blockchain? Well, we've actually been on our own quote-unquote journey in Arup on blockchain. In 2013, we started with a sort of presentation internally on blockchain and Bitcoin, trying to figure out what it's meant. We set up in 2015 an internal platform for research on blockchain distributed ledger, and the first internal research project was approved. By 2017, we got to the stage of actually creating an asset called Overcoin, which was our own sort of proof of concept coin. I think it sat on the proof of stake blockchain, and just allowed us to get some practical experience of blockchain. We joined the construction blockchain consortium last year, and produced some various sort of thought leadership publications trying to figure out the use of blockchain in the built environment, and then of course now collaborating in this event to take forward our knowledge on sort of blockchain, distributed ledger, and our industry. Backdrop to all of this, of course, everybody will be familiar with in this room is this incredible rise of digitization. Everybody in this room will be familiar with this, but it just bears sort of reminding ourselves of the pace with which digital transactions are taking place, the increase in data volumes that's happening. So at this stage, usually most other presentations will present something about from the dawn of time to last year, 7 petabytes of data were created in the last year alone, 102 petabytes. Who really knows those figures? They're a bit crazy, but we all know that the scale of data is just increasing and has increased exponentially and is happening at pace. And more importantly, for blockchain, systems are becoming ever more interconnected. So as we see the emergence, for example, of autonomy in vehicles, you're beginning to see the emergence of technological meshes that mesh together sensing technology, software, machine learning systems, communications infrastructure of different types between vehicles, roadside, citywide, and that's the interconnected nature of the digitization and data is what makes blockchain potentially a profound technology and solution. When we look across all of the sectors that we Arup work in most significantly, cities, energy, property, transport, water, we see emerging applications and emerging experimentation in blockchain. The truth, though, is I think at the moment, as a technology, this has reached its furthest in finance, partly because of the incredible and high volumes of data, and partly just because of the scale of startup money in the finance sector. So you're seeing some of the most advanced applications taking place in finance. That, of course, has its upsides of experimentation and breakthrough and intellectual breakthroughs. It obviously has its downsides, as we saw from Quadriga CX this week, where it seems that there's £145 million worth of crypto coins that nobody can now access because the founder has died with the private key in his possession. So, as ever with cryptocurrency, it's a high-risk thing, isn't it? And that's an area of experimentation that's happening fast. When we look across the built environment, we see some of the earliest blockchain technologies really being developed around transactions. And it's the ability of blockchain to significantly reduce the middleman, middle trader, in complex trading systems where blockchain is beginning to have a significant impact. So, for example, in something like in energy management, the rise of microgrids and peer-to-peer trading happening within microgrids, the needs to just make that an incredibly efficient and easy transaction and remove the costs of doing that. So an organisation like LO3 Energy in Brooklyn developing a blockchain for the solar microgrids in that area. Likewise, it's I think quite well known Electron developing blockchain technologies for grid scale transactions. And in Singapore, an organisation like Electrify, which is using blockchain for peer-to-peer solar trading. Again, all of them designed to cut out the significant costs that arise from just transactional costs from those kinds of tradings. People will be familiar, I'm sure, here in the UK, the process of renewable certification is just insanely costly for a relatively straightforward thing. Verifying that such an element of electricity was generated from a renewable source, which is obviously incredibly valuable given the incentives and payments around the renewable system. But just that simple act, transactional act, is ridiculously costly. So the opportunity for blockchain even to start doing some quite simple things that should reduce transactions costs, we're seeing emerging in energy, and we're seeing emerging in things like, as I was mentioning, real estate as well. So a number of land agencies looking at using blockchain systems just to simplify the transactional costs of land registration or real estate verification, or even in construction supply chain management, something like SiteSense, which is just using blockchain to monitor and maintain construction records. And given the incredible sort of complexity of construction supply chains, and given the arguments and the time and cost delays from something simple like not having a shared, agreed register of those things, those are really significant. So you don't have to go to like the really kind of super funky end of blockchain to start seeing some things in energy and construction and real estate which are beginning to be proven out and beginning to be useful. Likewise, I think we're seeing interesting blockchain technologies emerging that tackle the intrinsic trust and verification needs of the digital economy. So this plethora of digital data that's being generated and the interconnected nature of systems means that trust and verification is often a really important function, and very often a function without which markets can't even start working. So the Walmart blockchain that's being built for sort of farmer to shop verification of produce and their origins. Interesting example of that. In the circular economy, Nokia and their Internet of Things sensing technology they're developing that tries to trust and verify environmental infractions, illegal dumping, illegal burning, those kinds of things. The Velox land titling blockchain that's emerging. In transport, both Renault and Dubai as a nation are trying to develop really efficient and effective blockchain systems for validating car ownership, car provenance, and the level of parts. And anybody who is remotely acquainted with the second-hand car market knows just how valuable that can be. And in a place like Dubai, that's where they're starting with blockchain because that's a significant problem for them. So those that the ability of blockchain to provide unimpeachable and verifiable and trusted data through distributed technologies and agreed protocols has the opportunity to create new markets in areas where they don't exist, or significantly improve the functioning of markets like second-hand markets through the trust and verification mechanisms that it can provide. And we see some really interesting examples of that, even in something new like electric vehicle charging. Motionwerk in Germany developing a blockchain for the ability of individual car owners to plug their car into the network and then get a sort of a trusted and verified process of logging and exchanging the use of battery import and export of energy. Again, won't exist unless the trust and verification problems there are sorted out. So, interesting emergence of blockchain in different areas, starting in transactions, moving on to trust and verification. But, given where blockchain technology is at the moment, we, Arup, think, we should start also thinking about how we design blockchain systems that anticipate or tackle some of the wider issues that are emerging and often emerging in all technology issues. So, for example, energy consumption. Now, there have been many stories about the insanely high energy needs of Bitcoin. Some of those are obviously completely untrue, but it is true, and because the research papers on which they're based are just frankly, risible. But it is true that blockchain, that Bitcoin in particular, is a relatively energy-intense system. So it would be deeply ironic, wouldn't it, if we were trying to use blockchain to solve things like renewable energy certification and the creation of markets in solar and offshore wind at the same time as we were designing it in such a way to be incredibly energy intensive. So we should, at this stage, as blockchain technologies are emerging, be thinking about the design principles that allow them to be compatible with sustainable energy use, for example. Likewise, the last 6 months has just seen this incredible change in the debate around technology companies relating to their role, for example, as publishers versus platforms, to their responsibility for content, and for their approach to personal data. And if you follow the sort of regular unpeeling of the Facebook onion, you'll see what happens when you don't think about these things fundamentally in the design of your system. What is your approach to data privacy? How can you guarantee it? What is really happening in these systems? Why don't you feel responsible for the content that's on your platform? And just this week, there was a claim, I don't know whether this is true or not, that somebody had alleged child pornography on the Bitcoin distributed ledger. Now that's just totally unacceptable. And for those of us who are interested in this area and wanting to, develop distributed ledger technologies, we should now be thinking about issues of data privacy, and social responsibility about what can and can't be put in that content before it scales up. And finally, of course, we need to be thinking about the broader social, ethical, environmental goals that we have. For example, we in Arup are committed to making all of our work deliver the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Now, as this industry is nascent, as we're testing and trialing, new blockchain uses in different areas. So that's just a little bit of a sort of run through where we, Arup, are in our thinking about blockchain and our use of blockchain. Others will be making presentations this morning to give an update on their own work and thinking. What are our next steps? So today we're launching our two things, our report, sort of blockchain in the built environment. I think everybody's got a copy on their chairs in traditional sort of, deadwood fashion, so that's great. It's a sort of really good and comprehensive look at different sectors and where the technologies have got to, and some think pieces about where they might head. Likewise, we're sort of publishing what we feel is a timeline of the various different technologies underway, blockchain technologies and uses underway in different sectors, in cities and energy and property and transport and water. What our discussions have been with various experts about the stage of maturity of those technologies, when they're likely to be in ideation, initiation, scale up and widespread use as a contribution to the discussions and debates about which areas are moving fast, which areas is there potential to use. And what we hope to achieve ourselves, in working openly and in collaboration with partners is, we want to see new forms of cooperation, interactions between people and machines. As I was saying, ones that think now about the ethics, the goals, and the principles on which those are based. We actively seek to collaborate with research partners in universities, in other companies, in the sector, and that's what these 2 days are very much about. And we really want to, as I said, develop these technologies and be at the forefront of developing these technologies for our sectors, but also that matches our commitment, which runs through Arup like a stick of rock, which is to shape a better world. That's what gets us up in the morning. That's what motivates folk who work in our company. So that's a little bit of an intro from me about what we're here to do and some thoughts from Arup. I'm delighted to invite Vikram, who's got a presentation from Oracle about the work you've been doing. Thank you very much.